Hi, my name's Tom Blake. I'm the listing specialist on the Homes Just For You team with RE/MAX Liberty in Westminster, and I'm sitting here with
Brianna Kelly from Total Mortgage. I'm the Vice President and Branch Manager of the Leominster Total Mortgage Office.
So Bree and I have been getting together since May of last year to try to bring information to folks about the market in as real a way as possible,
Yes.
right? So we're, forget the hype, forget the newsreels.
Yes.
We're just trying to pick real examples of what's going on in the central Massachusetts area, and we both live close to the Leominster area and we're very familiar with the market.
Right.
And that's where we started last year, and it's a brand new year.
Yep.
So we want to start out looking at Leominster for the first month of the year, and we're catching it at the tail end where it's only almost, geez, I can't believe we're through January already. It's the year's going pretty
Blinked.
fast.
Yep.
We blinked and it's over. So what we'd like to start with is there's actually some hope this year. So all last year we kept talking about you got to be ready. You got to be. Just the rates are getting worse. You think about buying now because the rates could go up. Don't listen to there's going to be this market crash, because there wasn't. And this year there is actually starting to be some hope and some evening out of the market. And we're going to take an example now of how. So the Leominster market's fairly similar. So right now in Leominster, if I look at MLS, there's 17 listings. So there's 17 houses available for sale in Leominster, which, I think it was like 20 or 21 when we first started looking at it. So that's fairly consistent. We want to look at 34 Princeton Street in Leominster. 34 Princeton Street, Leominster is a ranch. It's 1,120 square feet. It's considered a starter home in the Leominster area. And it's $375,000. That's the asking price. It's been on the market now for about 11 days, which is actually kind of a long time for a starter home. Bree, why don't you take it away with, at today's rates, what would this cost you?
So if we were just to go to, now the houses in Leominster are selling about how much over right now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. 102.2%?
Yeah, 102.2%. That's right. Yeah.
So 375, which means if we're going with that same statistic, we'd be looking at a purchase price of 383,250, right? 3% down brings your mortgage down to $371,750. Median, the rates right now, depending on credit score and the type of loan product you have, is around 7%. So I'm going to use that average. Taxes are about $390 a month. Homeowners insurance, which we've been seeing an increase in that as well. I think we talked about that last time. It's about $100 a month, and PMI is about $188 a month. So that brings your payment to $3,150 approximately. Now, if you were to go back when we were saying the rates were even at 8%, that same payment would have been about $3,400. So it's a difference about $250 right now. I am seeing people that are getting rates, depending on what their situation, first-time homebuyer programs are in the mid-6s, which brings them down to closer to that $3,000 mark. So that's almost a $400 swing of what we were seeing a year ago, or I would say half a year ago. But the rates are definitely starting to see some relief, which is increasing people's buying power.
Yeah, it's $5,000 a year, pretty much.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's hard to believe that we were talking about a rate environment that went from high 2s and low 3s to 8.45, was it?
Yeah, 8.45 was the highest point of the median average rate last year.
And it really stopped the buying frenzy.
Absolutely.
We've seen some, so it's a real big change. There was low inventory, but homes were turning over fairly quickly. Right now, people are really stopping and thinking before they act. They really are. And people are afraid. I think there's a real sense of fear. They're wondering how things are going to change this year. What we're seeing for predictions, and what I'm seeing as a realtor, and what I think you're seeing, is a little bit more consistency in the forecast. So let's look at what's the same about this year going forward. So our predictions, right? And actually, our predictions are other people's predictions to some degree. We look at NAR. She looks at statistics for her business. I look at local statistics on what's called RPR, Realtor Property Resource, which is built off of Realtor.com. So usually when we're talking, it's not us making up statistics.
Right.
It's us reporting projections from people that are way smarter than me anyway. But
Well, and I laugh because I think even last year we had a lot of people that were giving predictions where, the extremes.
Jeez.
And
yeah.
I feel like everyone's kind of come back to the center. The predictions seem to be pretty consistent. A little bit off, but some people are like, oh, the rates are going to be 9-10%. The other one's like, no, it's going to go to 5%.
Yeah.
There was a huge swing, and now the general consensus is, and if I read it, like NAR, which is National Association of Realtors, is they're saying the mortgage rates first few months of this year 7%ish, and into the year in the 6% range. They're predicting more in the low to mid sixes, which I think is huge. And same thing, and actually. Mortgage Bankers Association, you hear, I call them MBA. They're saying that in 2025 that the rates are going to head into the fives, mid fives, upper fives, things like that. But the general consensus is this year is going to be in the sixes, so that's huge.
Yeah, that's a very big change. I mean, that's Bree was saying to me earlier when we were talking about content that for every quarter point it was $75 and less that you had to pay, right? The cost. So. There's now we're balancing a couple different things. So yes, the rates could continue to come down, which a buyer may say, I want to wait until the rate comes down, right? So we got to look at the other part. So we still have a constriction of inventory. So it's not, it is payment, but that payment's based on a principal.
Correct.
And if the principal continues to rise, you may be paying less interest, but you are paying more principal. So it's very possible that right now it could be a very good time to buy for the foreseeable future, quite frankly. Like if you are thinking about buying a house, you might want to consult with the appropriate party, a realtor, or your mortgage consultant.
Absolutely.
And truly understand what your buying power is now, because it might be the same. It might be. The predictions for housing costs in Massachusetts could be up 1 or 2% towards the end of the year. And 1 or 2% of $400,000 is $4,000 to $8,000 that you're paying that much more interest on. So again, we can, and on a case-by-case basis, we can look at that. And now we're really getting into the weeds here. But so what is the same about this year is that it's still a deep seller's market. Ignore the hype. There's no market crash coming. There aren't a monster amount of foreclosures. Most people, actually I think it's over 60%, pushing 70% of people are in an equity position, rich position, meaning they own 50% or more of their home at the moment. Which means even if they got into financial trouble, they're not going to get foreclosed on. They're going to sell out of the house. They're going to be able to save themselves.
Right.
In Leominster right now, there's only one statistic that I care about that's called the absorption rate. So we have what's called how many months of inventory are in the market. So we've done this before, if we had 100 homes for sale, they sell at 20 homes per month, you have 5 months worth of inventory, would be out of inventory in 5 months. In Leominster right now we have 0.7, that's 0.7 months worth of inventory. So everything on this page theoretically should sell by the end of the month. Now, that doesn't mean you can't buy a home. Don't give up, all right? So there were 16 active listings. 17 are under agreement. And in the last 6 months, 129 homes sold. That means that homes are coming on the market and they're going off quickly, right? So if you're working with a real estate professional, if you're working with a mortgage professional, you know what you can afford. So you've already gone to see Bree, right? Or somebody similar to Bree.
Right.
You know how much you can afford and you're ready to buy, right? Meaning you've got the money in place. That's what the listing agent's going to care about. Can you pay for the house that you're currently bidding on?
Right.
That's what they care about.
Important.
Yep. And if you are searching in the right area and you know what house, the type of house comes into that particular market, you're ready to buy one of these houses that comes onto the market and acquired in that short period of time, right?
Yep.
So I think it bears repeating. Bree, what do you need to do to get ready to financially afford a house in
Absolutely.
the current market? We'll take this example.
Yes. So, I mean, the biggest thing is you want to sit down and really take a good analysis of your budget, really sit down and understand what you are comfortable paying every month. Are there expenses that maybe you could tighten up and not have to pay? And I definitely think, sitting down and having a conversation with someone to be able to see what you can truly afford. And I say this every time, doesn't matter what I tell you afford on paper, it matters what you feel comfortable paying every month. Because I could tell you could pay much above what you want to actually physically pay, because there's a chance you have to change your lifestyle for that. And some people are willing to make those type of changes. But it again, it's really understanding your personal budget. And then it's talking about, okay, how about if I'm only paying X amount of dollars in rent, or I'm living in my parents' house? Practice making that mortgage payment that you say you feel comfortable with. Put it aside in a savings account. That's what my kids. That's actually what my kids are doing right now. So, but I have them sit, put the payments aside, and because then you're like, okay, no, I can do this. I can pull this off. But again, other things in there, oil or electricity, and home expenses. So it's important that you really budget that money. And it's also it's important to make sure you figure out how much you need for a down payment. Typical first-time home buyer on a conventional loan, 3% down. There is 100% financing. But there's also, FHA, it's 3.5% down. Mm-hmm. In certain territories, you can do 100% in like USDA. So there's quite a few programs that are out there that you could be able to be a first-time home buyer with not a ton of money down. I also recommend that you have a conversation with your lender about closing costs and prepaids, because it seems like a lot of the people that I talk to that have spoken with an online, an online person, or maybe not really have an in-depth conversation and go, okay, well, you need, 3% down, which is, $9,000 in a $300,000 house, which is hard to find in this market, but doable. And then you need maybe another, $8,000 to $10,000 for closing costs and prepaids. And that's a big shocker for people to be able to be like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know I need that much more money.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
And then asking for a seller to pay closing costs right now is also in this market. I'm seeing it, but it's definitely not as common.
I hardly ever see that, right?
Yeah.
The odds of having there's so many people that have done what they were supposed to do, let's take that back. So because there's not a ton of homes that are trading hands right now, there are a lot of people who have really prepared themselves in this market to purchase in this market, meaning they are prepared to pay the closing costs, they are prepared with a good down payment, they are prepared with a reasonable loan product, and they understand that they need to some degree, woo the seller a little bit, with an easy transaction.
That's the name of the game right there.
Yeah. You need to be able to speak to the seller in a way so that they understand that you are going to make it very easy for them to cash out of their house and go do whatever it is that they want to do.
Back to the local lender piece of that with these, you go to one of these online companies, they don't know what they've actually collected for paperwork from you. So it's important. It's important that you're prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we always, when we get together, we always stress preparedness, like reasonable preparedness. And it doesn't mean you can absolutely do this. You can absolutely buy a house in this market. It's not that there's nothing out there to buy. You just have to be ready to buy the right house for you when it comes onto the market. You cannot go to an open house and you walk through the open house and go, oh my God, this is the most perfect house in the whole wide world. I got to have it. And you haven't even applied for a mortgage. There's no way you're getting that house.
Right.
Not happening. Not in this market. You could have done that 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah.
About 6 years ago. But that is not a reasonable position right now. You need to be prepared to purchase that house before you walk through the door.
Right.
You need to know what you're looking for. And that takes, having a good real estate agent by your side.
Absolutely.
You need someone to help coach you through the market to help you understand where that house might likely show up, right? If you are looking for a $400,000 starter home in Concord, you might have some trouble. You know,
Maybe a shed.
maybe a shed, right? But if you're looking for it in Leominster, you're in the right place.
Right.
Right. So you need to understand what you actually can do, you know. An interesting screen that we came across that we started talking about before we got on camera was first-time homebuyer challenges, and this was something that they polled first-time homebuyers and said what was the hardest part about buying in this market, and they're very, very consistent with what we talk about, right? So we'll probably try to wrap some of these things into future videos, but finding the right property. 61% of buyers in this environment.
More than half.
More than half.
That's a number.
Finding the right property. And I'd argue that's a low statistic right now.
I agree. I actually agree with that. And I think maybe people were like, I can make this work. But for the most part, finding the right property, meaning I'm sure it has to do with things like they're not maybe well equipped to be able to do home repairs on their own, or there's like a kitchen that a lot of outdated properties, things like that. Or I also think, maybe it's a situation where you need an additional bedroom or things like that. So we had a big sales summit for my company this month, and one of the things we talked about was using like renovation loans to be able to adjust that number of the 61% of buyers saying, hey, listen, you know what? Maybe you do find a house that's a little less expensive, but you find it that you're able to do the repairs inside of that house or the improvements that you want to do inside of that house to make it the right house for you, which I think makes a big difference. It gives you some options. And, we do a lot of rehab loans, and people automatically assume rehab loans are meant for like just completely dilapidated properties that maybe need way more love than they want to give, but it also might just mean like you need to fix a kitchen. You might need to be able to just fix a septic system. So there are options to make the house that maybe isn't the right property for you become the right property for you. And it's important. That's when you're working with an experienced agent that can look at the property and say, hey, listen, you know what? That you could probably finish the basements in this property and get that additional room, or just a little bit of TLC in this house, and the kitchen will make that kitchen more up to date. So there are options, but that 61% of buyers not being able to find the right property that's a big number.
So just a question here.
Yep.
So would a 203K loan work for someone who had an existing, so I'm seeing this a lot when I'm talking to folks. So sellers are really on the fence about putting their house. So one of the things that's holding the inventory back is sellers right now, they have 50% of their house paid for, and they have a 3% loan. So they have a very small down payment, and they're thinking to themselves, well, my home isn't that bad. Do I really want to go pay top price for someplace somewhere else and then pay 7 or 8% on top of it? And the answer so far is no. So one of the things I've been coaching people on is, do you want to stay in place?
Right.
And just fix it up to be the place that you want it to be, so this is a great conversation to have as well with a realtor. What's your house worth? And, what's the viability of staying here and fixing it up in the way that you want it to be? And or should I sell this house because it makes more sense to just go buy something else somewhere else and it's less expensive that way? Can a 203K loan work to rehab a house where it's your house?
Yes you can. Yep, you could do it as a refinance to be able to rehab your own house. So there's 203K and there's Homestar, which is the conventional version of that same mortgage. There's certain dollar restrictions and some things that need to happen within the property that, if it's over a certain dollar amount, you need to have a HUD consultant. We know the HUD consultant. So again, we've done quite a few rehab loans over the years. And it is a situation where, like, listen, hey, you know what? I need an addition on this house to be able to make the house.
Maybe you get a parent who needs to stay,
which
or
is
something,
a very common thing that I'm seeing.
Or a student who needs to stay at home and
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So absolutely, you could utilize that loan to be able to do that addition to the property.
So That's actually something that I've really been thinking a lot about, is helping people understand what the value of their house is
Right.
and whether it makes sense for them to move or not right now. You know?
I have quite a few people that are pulling out equity lines too on their property to do those projects, and I think they're with the understanding that the hopefulness of being able to refinance and possibly putting it together, things like that, which I am not advising people to go after their 3% interest rate to refinance to go to 7% if it's a smaller dollar amount. It's just, that's not financially sound advice.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely, but that is something that you could look at. I know that doesn't necessarily help our inventory problem, but
Well, no, it's like a case by case basis, right? You know, our
Absolutely.
goal is to help people in their particular situation, right?
but
You
being
know?
honest and giving good advice, and that's something that's important. Everyone's situation's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think being the source of knowledge and information and letting them make a decision based upon appropriate information is super important. And that's whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, relocating, it doesn't matter. You know, I like to consider myself an expert in my field, which means if someone comes to me, I'm going to give them advice, be like, listen, in my situation, you know, or this, but I know what your situation is. My recommendation is this.
Right.
So, you know,
That's what a good fiduciary does.
Yes.
Our goal is to
wish everybody thought like that.
is to put your interest first.
Yeah.
So I think that is a really great place to stop for our introductory video for 2024.
That's right.
Now 2024. I'm still having trouble writing that on the
Same.
check, right? So we'll do our best to come to you every month with a new market report. Try to show, you know, trends. Try to analyze the trends that we see. Present the statistics and the predictions that are coming from the pundits, and then what we see here on the ground, along with different topics that we happen to see as pertinent at the time. So.
Right.
We wish you a wonderful, prosperous 2024, and good luck house hunting.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye now.